You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, your source of music news, stories, and 2-hour deep dive interviews with bands that have sold over 80 million albums. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He's achieved a level of mastery as the drummer for the multi-platinum selling and 4-time Juno award-winning band Our Lady Peace. The band has sold over 5 million albums, and their diamond-selling album Clumsy is one of the best-selling albums of all time in Canada. So welcome to the podcast, Jason Pierce. Jason, how are you? And is it true that you're a massive Star Wars fan?
Joel, I have an issue with Star Wars. I can't stop. I've got the helmets. I've got so much stuff. Even the video games I've been obsessed with. For my 40th birthday, I was trying to beg my wife to take me to Disney to make a lightsaber. Obviously, we were on tour. I think I saw you a day or two before my birthday. And it's been a lifelong thing. I'm trying to get my son into it. He's not really interested, but I'm gonna wear him down.
It's so funny. I forgot about this. My sister and I used to rent movies all the time, and they were always horrible. As kids, we had no idea what was good or not. And my dad warned us, if you guys rent one more horrible movie, I'm going to pick the next movie. And again, we pick a horrible movie. And he comes back with Star Wars to be like, okay, hold the fort. This is what a good movie looks like. So I don't know how old I was. I was 6, 7, 8. And he comes back with Star Wars. And we're like, okay, dad knows how to pick movies. So maybe that's where you're at in your relationship with your son in your timeline.
Most importantly, which Star Wars did he make you watch? Because it wasn't the one with Jar Jar Binks, was it? Because that one.
No, this is way back in the day. So it was the original trilogy. He started with the first old school movie from, when was it, 77, something like that.
Oh, he did it right then.
He did it right. And it was years later, my uncle brought us in 99 when they started the new trilogy. So
I love that, man.
You have the helmets in the studio. You were begging your wife to take you to Star Wars. What is it? Star Wars Disneyland? What is this? Can you tell our listeners what this is if they're not familiar?
Yeah, there's this whole attraction in Los Angeles where they have like the Millennium Falcon. They have the Star Wars Hotel, which is, in my opinion, a little bit overpriced, and that's kind of why we didn't go. Plus the touring. But it's like, yeah, this whole attraction where you can go and feel like immersed in the movie, which for me would be a dream come true. I'll get there one day. It'll happen. And I'll have lightsabers hanging on my wall like a proud man.
You said they let you create a lightsaber when you're there?
Oh yeah, you get to make your own custom lightsaber. You even get to pick your color of the blade and all that stuff. It's, the ultimate.
How much time have you thought about what color you're going to choose?
Oh, it would be purple or red for sure. I've spent some time.
yeah, it's a thing. So when we scheduled you to come on as a guest, I put out the bat signal for all the Jason Pierce fans, for all the Our Lady Peace fans to send in questions. So we have a bunch of questions that'll sprinkle over the next 2 hours. And the first one comes from someone you might know. So this is from Chris Mallet. And his question is, I'd love to hear his opinion on who shot first, Han or Greedo?
Oh, man, that's a deep one, Chris. I'm gonna say Han, but I could be wrong. I'm not perfect.
Have you ever done the Star Wars marathon? So I've done the original trilogy a bunch of times. I've done the new ones. I went and did all 6. And now I guess there's 9 of them. They've done another trilogy. Have you marathon these movies before?
Yeah, actually last year we were flying down to Los Angeles to do some writing, and the whole travel day and any time I had off, I was marathoning those movies. Duncan was like, let's go for a walk on the beach. I'm like, well, I'm almost done episode 3.
Let's get our priorities straight here.
Absolutely. It's going to be sunny tomorrow, but this movie's not going to finish itself. But the funny thing was that there was a movie theater just around the corner that was actually playing The Phantom Menace as well. And I'm like, why is this playing right now? But I had just finished that one on the plane. I almost went and watched it again.
If it was one of the better movies, maybe you would have watched it again.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. And I probably would have got Duncan to come with me at that point too, but it didn't happen.
Poor Duncan gets pulled into all of this. So for those that are listening and don't know, Duncan is the bass player for Our Lady Peace, correct?
Absolutely. And he also loves Star Wars. We have a
Okay.
kindred spirit on that one.
We're going to talk about how you became a member of Our Lady Peace. I'm wondering if this mutual love of Star Wars was like the kicker. If there were two drummers that were equal, but one of them loves Star Wars, maybe that's what gets you in.
It probably has a lot to do with it. That and my love for coffee.
That's funny. Actually, more than the drumming itself, it was the love of Star Wars.
Absolutely. You have to relate on a personal level before you can click musically.
That's very true. And I wanted to kick this interview off powerfully. So I reached out to another iconic Canadian drummer
Ooh.
and he provided some kind words. So this is from Christian Tana, the drummer for the multi-platinum band I Mother Earth. Look, behind me, I got you both of you guys together, Our Lady Peace and I Mother Earth, the album covers. And Christian sends in these kind words. He says, I first dig Jason as an excellent dude. Full stop. Hearing him play these songs that I've heard OLP play for all these years with his solid style, I think has actually elevated the band. He is a rock back there. I love that band's music and the career they have built, but they are even better as guys, friends, fathers, and brothers. So that's from Christian
He is a
Tana,
lovely
I'm Mother
human
Earth.
being. I love that guy. We toured Canada with them. I don't even know what year it was. It might have been like 2016 or something like that. And we've done a bunch of shows with them since I've been in the band, and they're just such solid people. And I was a huge fan of Senior and Fish, that record from them. That and the CanCon from that era was big in my development as a drummer because I would come home from high school and like rip through those records. So getting to know those people on a personal level decades later has been like a complete trip and like a full circle thing.
I think I saw both of you guys play together. You guys did an Edge Fest in Toronto that was all these awesome Canadian bands. I could be mixing up the lineup, but I think there was Our Lady Peace as the headliner, but there was Eve Six, I Mother Earth, I believe. I think there was Sloan. Like it was such a good lineup. I might be making this up, but I think both of you guys were on the same bill for this Edge
Yeah,
Fest
yeah.
show.
I believe that was my first year playing in OLP. Actually, it was probably one of the first like 10 shows I ever did with the band, and
Oh
I
wow.
totally that was at Echo Beach, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that happened. It happened. It
Okay, I'm
wasn't a
glad I'm
dream.
not crazy. I just remembered that there was like a torrential downpour leading up to that. So I was living in the GTA for 11 years, and my friends road trip from Ottawa, the same friends that I went to this current Ottawa show to see you, they road trip from Ottawa to Toronto and they went to the Echo Beach show with me. And all three of us showed up in blue head to toe ponchos. We were ready for the whatever came that show.
I love that, man. Yeah, that was a good memories. I think we played that Lana Del Rey song "Summertime Sadness" at that show. We only did that like a pocket of shows through that year, I think, and then we recorded a live version of that as well. That was fun. Good
Yeah,
memories, man. Thank you.
that's awesome. Yeah. So I like to share with our listeners how the guests and I know each other, just showing the importance of networking, of building community, fostering relationships. You know, in the music industry, it's who you know, it's the relationships you have. So in our case, we've been friends on Facebook for a long time, even though we haven't really communicated much. We've been kind of in the same bubble. We cross paths without knowing each other many times, going back to when you were performing with the band The Weekend. My band played a show with you guys way back in the day. I was there when you were with Never Ending White Lights. You played a show at Babylon in Ottawa. I was there. You did some shows with Carly Rae Jepsen. So there was a festival in Kitchener, some other things. So I have a history with Carly Rae as well. And then now with Our Lady Peace, I was talking about the show, one of your first shows at Echo Beach for Edgefest in Toronto. And then recently, we have a mutual friend on Facebook. His name's Dustin Pomeroy. This guy's the biggest Metallica fan on planet Earth. He's gone to over 100 shows. Like he got like a medallion or a plaque for his 100th Metallica show. He just follows
Wow.
the band. You can buy like 8 city tickets where you pay for 8 and you can choose your 8 cities, something like that. It's for like the hardcore Metallica fans. So he reached out and he said, you know who would be a great guest on your podcast? And he said you. And I said, surprisingly, I've never asked you, even though I've had you on my list of potential future guests. So it was Dustin that kind of reminded me that you would be a great guest. And that's how we ended up here today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. That's
There,
crazy. I like that idea about the 8 ticket or 8 city pass. I think I
yeah.
might have to bring that up with the boys.
Yeah, and they end up so Metallica plays in the round, so they can
Yes.
play an entire stadium or arena. It's like there's no seats that can't be sold. And
Totally.
then they have the floor, but then they play within a circle. So there's a middle that there's a crew that at the start of the show they're brought in under the stage into the middle, and that's where the eight ticket people are. So for eight shows, they're in the middle, and Metallica often will turn inward and play like they're playing a 300-person show to these guys. That's what
Wow.
he's buying. So he's a legit massive fan. He goes to all the big festivals, the Louder Than Life and Aftershock. So yeah, if ever I want to know who's playing where, I talk to Dustin. So
That's so crazy. I love how they've made like an intimate part for these fans. Like these super fans can actually get up at close and personal. Like it's almost like a club show in
yeah,
a stadium.
yeah, there's 80,000 people, and then they'll give a few moments to these guys on the inside. So, we're going to do a full 2 hour deep dive here. We're going to cover your entire life, your career, your discography. There's so much to get to with Our Lady Peace, with the 30th anniversary tour you guys just wrapped up. You guys just announced a big tour in the US. There's new music that has been released to celebrate the 30th anniversary. There's so much to get to, but there's a lot we got to get to all the way at the start that gets us to this point. So let's go back to the beginning. Is there an earliest music memory that comes to you when you think back to maybe the first time where music jumped out at you as being something awesome or important or meaningful?
I'm kind of rare in the way that my parents were in the industry as well. My mom was an LD; she did lighting, and my dad was a sound guy. So I grew up at shows my entire life. My dad would always kind of park me behind the drummer, and I just kind of was attracted to that. And I would not, I'd have like an eagle eye on the drummer the entire time. So I had like experiences with like Double Trouble, like Stevie Ray Vaughan's backup band, like watching them like 2 feet away, just stuff like that where like it really cemented, the fact that things were attainable almost. So I attribute a lot of, maybe my staying power to knowing that things aren't just in the ether, things are actually right there in front of you, and that if you work hard enough and believe in yourself enough, that there is actually a future in that. And it's not just, going to be pizza shops and bars for the rest of your life. Although I love pizza and I'm never against an old fashioned.
Have you thanked your dad for not placing you behind like the triangle player or the tambourine player or something?
There's nothing wrong with the triangle or the tambourine, Joel.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
just
I'm sorry.
that's where
Oh,
I
I
draw the
mean,
line.
yeah, it's that's so funny though. It's cool that you ended up behind the drums, and for parents, drums are the loudest instrument that you can get your kids. So that's worth mentioning as well.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure my dad was half deaf, which is not good for a sound guy, but I might have attributed to the other half of his hearing going. So that's fine.
And at what point did you switch from just loving music and being a fan of music to actually playing the drums, which I would think is your first instrument, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, it was my first instrument. I started playing when I was 4. My dad ended up selling this cable system to a guy. Well, it wasn't really selling. He bartered with it, and he got a set of Blue Sparkle Stewarts for me, and I played on those every day until he had a friend's family come over, and the kids came down and stuck their cap guns right through the drum heads, which broke my heart. So that was my hiatus there for probably about 6 months to a year, where I didn't realize I could just change the drum heads. I was young, you know. I've learned my lessons. But yeah, that was pretty much the only time I didn't play. But when I hit high school and was a teenager, that's when I really started to like deep dive into drums and the whole musical world. To the point where even on my lunches at high school, like I would go to the music room and they had this little drum iso room, and I would just play drums all lunch. And then I'd come into like math class after all sweaty and like, teenage funk. Teenage funk. I like that. That's an album name.
Smells like Teen
Uh,
Spirit.
yeah. Uh, but yeah, at that point I started like really focusing, and right out of high school, that's when I joined the band The Weekend. So it was like this gradual thing where, I how did that happen? It was one of my best friends was dating the bassist. Like you said, it's who you know all the time. And that was a foot in to the door there. And I auditioned and got that gig. And that was like my first record I ever really played on. It was called Beatbox My Heartbeat. We went to Vancouver. We did that at a place called Mushroom Studios, where I think Zeppelin did a bunch of stuff. So I was just like mind blown. And a big one for me was Matt Good had done Avalanche there, which, if you know, like Weapon and all those songs from that record, I loved the drum sound of that. So I actually got to play on, I think it was the exact same Ludwig kit in the same room as that record. And just, yeah, it was terrifying, but I grew from that. I grew some confidence at the end of that. And, it's been a heck of a ride.
And who would you say were your biggest influences as far as drummers when you were learning to play the drums? When you looked at these other drummers and saw what is truly possible if you commit your life to this craft?
Well, there's the classics like John Bonham. Like I'm gonna lump in Dave Grohl in that one as well because I think he's on the same level and par as that. But I had a real specific moment when I saw the music video for A Perfect Circle's Judith,
Nice.
and I remember seeing Josh Freese in that, who has been one of my favorite drummers, like still is one of my favorite drummers of all time. But I remember seeing him in that video, and it was just one of those powerful moments of being like, "That's what I want to do."
That's amazing. I remember when that album came out. That was like 2000 or something, right?
Something like that. Yeah,
It was they were joking that, you have the singer from Tool, you have Maynard, and there's this side project that they put out and it ends up selling 3 million copies in the US. It ends up being bigger than anyone's main album. It was this side project they did on the side. It was Tool's
oh,
guitar tech, Billy Howardell, I believe, who
yeah,
puts this together. And it's so funny that you bring up Josh Freese because in the very last interview I did it with the singer from 12 Stones, and he sings on Evanescence, "Bring Me to Life." Like it's crazy. And he was saying the debut album from 12 Stones, Josh Freese played drums during their entire album, and that Josh Freese literally just he came in, didn't know any of the music. They just played the songs for him, or I guess the demos without drums. He just listened, took a few notes, and said, "All right, I'm ready." And he went in, and I think in 3 hours played the drums for the entire album without having heard any music prior. And it went
that's
so
nice.
fast that he basically forgot that he ever played on that album. He said in interviews like he's played on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of albums to the point where he can't remember even when people point out what he's played on. And
Totally.
he did an interview with oh my God, he's the big Rick, what is it? No, the big podcast, the big YouTube video guy, the music guy
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
everyone loves.
Is it like
Um,
Beato or something?
yeah, Rick
Last name?
Beato, sorry. So
Yeah.
recently, Rick Beato did an interview with Josh Freese, and Rick Beato reminded him, "Oh, you actually played with 12 Stones back in the day." He goes, "Oh my God, I forgot about that." And so it's funny, two interviews in a row, we're talking Josh Freese and what a monster drummer he is.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Like so much respect for that guy. We actually did a show in Vegas. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, where Billy Howardell opened for us, and his band was Josh Freese on drums, and Danny Lohner from Nine Inch Nails, the original bassist, was playing guitar on that, and my buddy Kevy from Fake Shark, Real Zombie. I think they're just Fake Shark now. He was playing bass with them. So yeah, it was like I was terrified coming up to it because I knew Freeze was going to be there, and I'm like, I have to like headline after Freeze opens. Like this is like in no world should that happen. And then he was like standing side stage as I'm playing and all this stuff, and I think I thanked him for letting me use his drums probably about 30 times. I hung out with him and Danny Lohner like in the evening in Vegas after, and I literally couldn't stop thanking him. It was just like compulsively coming out of me, like yeah. So he had to know at that point that I was a fan. Like, there's no way.
That's so amazing. Yeah, later on, I'll ask you who were the bands that you ended up sharing the stage with. So probably as Our Lady Peace, if you have some favorite bands you ended up sharing the stage with. We'll get to that in a little bit. But at this
Sure.
point in the story, you're like 12 years old, 16 years old. So if I met you at 12 years old, who would I be meeting? What do you like at 12?
Well, I liked Star Wars a lot. That hasn't changed. Drums. That's pretty much it. Like I was never into sports or anything like that, which I think attributes to the fact that I focused so much on music. But I've always just kind of been like really focused and like I have a tendency to know what I want and go after it with a bit too much conviction, probably. But that ends up paying off in the long run.
And do you remember a first concert that you ever attended? Were you a kid, a teenager?
Yeah, the first concert I ever attended without my parents or anything being there because of their job, was the Clumsy tour. Believe that or not.
No.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I was so nervous that I almost didn't go because my stomach was hurting because of like just anxiety. Like it was amazing, and I bought a Clumsy shirt and I wore it till there was holes all through it. Um, yeah, I was a huge like Tagger fan, as was every other drummer in Canada, or is, he's amazing. And the stuff that was on those first few records, it's timeless.
You must have been maybe 12 years old when that tour happened.
It's true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I had Jeremy on as a guest a couple of years ago, and I find that he's one of those drummers. There's just a handful of drummers I can think of that have the ability to create hooks with their drums. They're not just
Exactly.
keeping time at the back. It's almost like they're a lead guitar. It's very cool.
No, exactly. Like those songs wouldn't be the same without what he created as a foundation. And it's more than a foundation. As he said, there's hooks in every last thing he does. If it's like a double on the snare or something like that, it's a little tiny thing that makes it unique to that song and unique to him. So
And
mad respect.
and if we were friends when you were 16 years old and you invited me over to listen to music, what albums do you think you would be playing for me? So 16 would be about 2001, I guess.
Yeah, that would probably be Appetite for Destruction. I went through a huge Guns N' Roses phase at that point. I was the head of the AV club in high school, and I actually had keys to the auditorium and keys to like the side door of the school. For some reason, they shouldn't have let a 16-year-old have that. But I had the ability to sign myself out of class too. So I would sign myself out of computer programming class, which I failed because I kept signing myself out of. Side note. But I'd go to the auditorium and I would blast Appetite for Destruction and Clumsy, those two records like back to back, and I would just sit in there and like just take it in through like the big PA in the auditorium alone. And yeah, so you would have been treated to probably those two records.
And I've heard that there was a show or a tour that involved both Our Lady Peace and Guns N' Roses. And my question is, do you think you manifested that show by playing those two albums consistently as a kid? Do you think you changed the outcome of the future with that?
I'd love to believe that I can change the future, but I don't know if I can. Yeah, it's strange. A lot of the time, a lot of the pinnacle moments of my career have been full circle moments for me. That one specifically too, like being on tour with Guns N' Roses, getting to hear like, Sweet Child of Mine and Welcome to the Jungle and stuff like that every night, but also being a member of the other band that I loved at that point in my life too it was crazy. I don't know if I manifested it, but like it was insane. I've had like multiple moments like that though in my life of being like, that song meant so much to me and now I'm playing it. And I don't understand why that keeps happening. I'm thankful it keeps happening, but like, it's very strange. I at one point was playing with Nick Carter from Backstreet Boys and we were doing like I Want It That Way. And it was like I literally felt like I was back in like grade 6 or grade 7 eating chips and drinking pop at a party. Like, I don't get it.
That's awesome. You talked a little bit about the band The Weeknd. So for our listeners that aren't familiar, long before the big solo artist The Weeknd, there was a female-fronted, I'd say pop rock group from London, Ontario called The Weeknd. And it's because of this group, The Weeknd, that the current weekend has the strange spelling of weekend missing an e at the end, and it was to avoid copyright stuff, legal stuff with your band. So yeah, I remember way back, my band played with your band one show. You guys were so good that I bought the album, and
Oh,
it's the
thank
one
you.
you're talking about. So, Beatbox My Heartbreak,
My heartbeat. Yeah.
Heartbeat, that's it. So, I bought that album and I played it so much and I forgot about it until I was preparing for this interview. And as soon as I saw the cover art on Spotify, I was like, oh, I know this band, I know this album. And as I listened to it, every song was amazing. Like that album is so underrated. That's like a Canadian
Wow.
gem. So I definitely wanted to talk about that band. How did you end up joining the band? You said this was like the first thing you ever did was there was a connection there and you end up joining this band.
Yeah, well, I had a band with my sister first that we were trying to get off the ground, and we did some recording and stuff like that. But I didn't really have any success until the weekend, and that was through the bassist's girlfriend who I knew got me an audition. We hung out. They were all so much older than me by perspective. I was like 18 years old, and they were like 25. I'm like, oh, these
So
people are
old.
so cool but old. Um, but yeah, we did the audition. We went out. They had some beers, and I think I drank like a Coca-Cola, like the good little boy I am, or was. And yeah, we jammed. It just kind of clicked. We made that record, and it ended up doing really, really well overseas. My first tour ever, we ended up going over to Indonesia, and we spent over a month doing all the little islands. And we were on this huge stadium festival tour called Soundrenaline, which, like, literally my first show as the drummer of this band overseas, we land and we're playing like this football stadium. We got flown in by helicopters. It was the most surreal, weird thing I've ever experienced. And then, like, we came back, and I think we did a show at Call the Office or the Bovine Sex Club, and I was just like, oh, perspective. Like, it can't always be football stadiums. But yeah, that band was a good learning experience. Um, from a business standpoint too, just because I was so young and so green that I didn't know what I needed to fight for and what was like important. And not saying I was taken advantage of in any way. It was just I think they knew that I was green, so a bunch of 25-year-olds could take control of situations.
You only got one slice of pizza instead of two on the rider and those kind
Half
of
a
things.
slice, no pepperoni. Yeah.
Half a slice. And there were a few crazy things that happened on this Indonesian tour.
Yeah, yeah. Well, first off, we took off like right before that tsunami hit, which was crazy, like the timing of all of that. But yeah, we were on a plane that was flying through a thunderstorm, and the engines cut out, and we started to go down. Luckily, it like popped back on, and like we were all kissing the ground when we got off the plane that time. We had a riot break out at one of our shows because I'm not sure if you're familiar, but they're quite religious over there. So they were doing like a prayer at a certain time on the stage. So they did that, and then like this kid fell on a power line, and he ended up passing away, and a riot broke out, and then the army had to come in and like started like shooting the crowd with like rubber bullets, which was like, what the heck is happening right now? And then we had to get up and play like happy pop music. Yeah, I don't get it. I think we were also, Andrea and I, the singer, we got stuck in an elevator with this little Indonesian man who was just like losing his mind. All these things when I'm 18 years old and just leaving the house for the first time.
That's wild. Do you remember the first time hearing your music on the radio? I'm assuming it's with The Weeknd. There were some pretty awesome songs on that album.
Yeah, it would have been, I think, probably a song called Disconnected or Temporary Insanity. It would have been played on FM 96 in London for the first time. That's when I heard it for the first time. And yeah, it was crazy. I was like, oh, that snare sounds good, which is a good thing.
You mentioned coming back and playing Call the Office. I lived in London for 1 year to go to school for audio engineering, and I was at Call the Office all the time. And I just heard that they shut down. Is that a real thing?
Yeah, I think it was a couple years ago. if I heard correctly. Which is so sad. That place was such a landmark for London, and like it was a stepping stone for a lot of musicians and you know people trying to break into the scene. And dude, I got to play a show there once with my sister's band opening for Melissa Oftemauer from the Smashing Pumpkins, which like just blew my mind. Like,
And
man.
she was with the Perfect Circle, wasn't she, at the start?
I think that was Darcy.
Okay, that was a different.
Yeah,
Okay.
who now plays in the Pixies, I think. But yeah, Oftemauer, I ended up getting to work with her with Never Ending White Lights. We did like a music video together, and she sang on one of the songs, and I got to be in studio when she was doing that. And then, full circle moment again when OLP was out touring with Smashing Pumpkins. Melissa came to hang out, and I'm just like, oh my god, I've known this like woman for like 20 years now. This is crazy, and she's such an icon. And like,
Wasn't the tour with Smashing Pumpkins, wasn't that a last minute thing?
oh yes, it was. I
Okay,
think
do you
we
want to
had
share that story? Someone fell out last minute and you guys came in to save the
yeah,
day.
Jane's Addiction had to drop
That's
off.
it. Okay.
Yeah, and oddly enough, I had just contracted shingles about 2 weeks before then. So I'm like, I was bedridden pretty much. I had it all over my head, around my eye. Like there was a chance I was like going to go blind one of my eyes from it, which is insane to think of. But I was like just struggling, trying to cut up some potatoes to make like French fries for my family. And Rain calls and he's like, "Are you guys available to hop on a tour?" I'm like, "Really? How long?" 2 days. Like, okay, challenge accepted. Like we can do this. But it was like, a Hail Mary to get everything together, like trying to find tour buses and crew and all this stuff. Well, like half my band lives in Los Angeles. So it's strategically not the easiest thing to try to pull off a lot of the time. But yeah, we had like a couple days notice. I think we did one rehearsal day of the first show before we played like the Scotiabank Center or whatever in Toronto, and I was still like healing shingles. Like it felt at this one point I was looking up at like the arena, and it felt like my face was like melting, and I had like no energy, and I'm just like sweating buckets. And yeah. But either way, that is one of the like core memories I will have for the rest of my life, because Smashing Pumpkins has meant so much to me as a musician. The songs, like I grew up hearing them coming through my sister's walls first. Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, when that record came out, my sister got a stereo for Christmas that year. And I remember those songs just like blasting through, and they have this like gravity for me. It just pulls it into me. Like, I love that record, man.
And and there, yeah, Billy Corgan just started a podcast. Have you seen this?
I haven't
And
seen that.
so it's Billy Corgan and the Significant One, something like that. And all his guests are incredible. It's like Tom Morello and yeah.
Cool.
And he's so you just know he's very intelligent, he's very well spoken, and everyone is saying like, wow, he is such an incredible podcast host and interviewer that this is like a
Wow.
whole other career that is pretty great. So yeah, check that out. It's very cool.
Oh, good for him. I like that. I know he's into wrestling and stuff too, which is crazy.
Yeah, he
I
he
think I heard that
owns
he had.
he owns like a wrestling like
uh,
NWA, or I don't know, he owns one of those NWO. He owns one of those companies.
okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he had wrestling at like some of his shows. There was like a side show thing going on with wrestling, so it totally makes sense that he's involved that deep then.
That's funny. Everyone has their little obsessions on the side outside of music. I have a question sent in here from someone you know. This is from Rich Meisner, who is a photographer and videographer for OLP and Finger Eleven and other bands.
Oh
And
yeah.
I met him for the first time at your Ottawa show a few weeks ago. So his question is, Dear Jason, what is the significance of the purple banana? Now, I have no idea what this means. Heads up.
Honestly, I don't even know where it roots from. I know that Rich always says it's the purple banana, and my ringtone for him when he calls me or texts me is him saying that with like a little beat underneath it. But I'm not quite sure where he's pulling that from. I love it though. I love Rich Meisner. He is a sweet, sweet man.
He's quite the photographer as well. I was seeing some of the pictures. You guys brought him out on tour, I believe, and all the amazing pictures every night seem to come from him.
Yeah, yeah, he's super talented. He's been with the band longer than I have. I believe his father and Duncan's dad had like this shipping company with like a big like sea boat things. That's not a technical term, a sea boat. That is not what they're called. But they were shipping boats basically. So they had this. They're like family at this point. Not blood, but like they're family. And Rich has been with the bands pretty much steady since I've been there. He was even there for the first shows I ever did. He dubs himself the Minister of Nocturnal Affairs. So
That's
he's that.
aptly titled.
Yeah, yeah.
So from 2005 to 2007, you are a part of Neverending White Lights, and I reached out to one Daniel Victor, and I have some kind words sent in. So
Oh no way.
yeah, and he likes you because he wrote a lot. He says, JP came into my life at a special time when Neverending White Lights was just starting out and adventuring into the unknown. He was my first drummer, my first tour, and my first true musical experience of raw talent. He was the foundation of the live band, and he made my songs come to life on stage with power, precision, and musicality. He plays with love, he plays with feel, and he leans into his craft with passion. Performing with him was a level up in every way. I knew he would hit great heights on his path, and he is as he is so blessed and gifted. As a friend, I love him dearly. His quirky humor keeps me smiling, and his big heart is like a warm embrace that fills the room. He has set the standard of drummers and friends in my life incredibly high. A true superstar human in every sense of the word. That's from Daniel Victor. He's such a
That's
poetic man, eh?
He's gonna make me cry. I literally am like tearing up. That is so sweet. Oh man. Yeah, that's crazy. I remember I was at my dad's shop and FM 96 was playing, as it does in London. Um and they used to use FM 96 as the kind of testing market for songs before it hit the radio, like before it's syndicated across the country. And The Grace came on for the very first time, and my ears were blown back. I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, this is incredible. And that's kind of how it all started with me in Never Ending White Lights. I went on a Google, looked them up. I don't even know if it was Google at that time. It might have been Dogpile or Yahoo or something like that. But
Web crawler.
web crawler. Oh God,
I
yes.
forgot. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Like, but I found his website and I saw that like it was basically just a one guy that was doing all this, and I hit him up and he didn't have a band. So buddies of mine, we all like got in a car, drove to Windsor and jammed with them, and we like put the whole Never Ending White Lights live band together. Um and that was like such a crazy experience for me because that was going from, playing clubs and stuff with the weekend in Canada. Yeah, like overseas was crazy, but like getting to be in a band in Canada that starts charting so well, has like a number one hit single, has number ones all over like Much Music and stuff like that, and then gets to tour opening for Our Lady Peace. That's my kind of my segue and my intro to that band, because I wouldn't know the guys in OLP if it wasn't for Daniel Victor and Never Ending White Lights. I would have never got to like I don't know if I would be in this band, you know? And it also introduced me to their management at that time, which was Coalition, because we were on the same management. So I got to know like Rob Lanny and Eric Lawrence, who are beautiful people. And they've helped me out so much too. So yeah, it's been like not just who you know, but like connecting with like the right people that led me on this path that just, kind of snowballed.
For the first probably so the podcast is next month has its 5 year anniversary, and for the first 3 years the Daniel Victor interview I did was by far the most popular, period. So this guy, man, even though he hasn't put out an album in a while, I know he's been working on one for a while. That fan base is rabid for
Yeah.
that music, and I got the album cover here.
Oh,
uh
you do? No way.
yeah,
I
yeah.
got the bass drum on my wall over here.
That's so cool. What was your life like when you joined the band and The Grace is just like you mentioned number one? That song is so important because it launched not just the Never Ending White Lights career, but it launched the Dallas Green City and Color solo career. I remember
Totally.
there's a one just a period of a few months where you have Never Ending White Lights featuring Dallas Green. The Grace is out, so The Grace is a big hit, and then you had Alexis on Fire. I think it was their third album. There's one hit from that album. And
Mhm.
then there was the solo album, sometimes with Savior Scissors. So Dallas
Exactly.
Green had three separate hit singles at the same time, and he's never looked back. He's been one of Canada's biggest solo artists since then. So that's such an important song.
100%, 100%, man. And like, I don't know, Dallas is just such a talent. I remember we were at the old Elmo combo before it got bought out by Weck and like redone. Uh and Never Ending White Lights was playing, and it was the only time that we ever performed The Grace with Dallas. Because there was like some sort of like falling out, bad blood thing going on. I'm not getting into that, but not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But yeah, he came to sound check, and I remember hearing his voice through my in ears, and I had like full body goosebumps. Just like, wow. Some people, when you're on stage with them, like they don't sound like they do coming out the PA. Like it just disconnects. And some people, it's just like that is just what this person sounds like. And that sound is awesome. Like, you can't fake that.
So way back when Alexa on Fire released their first album, I saw them at Babylon, three or 400 people, and
Sick.
they're awesome. And then Dallas Green is just this guy in this band that hasn't quite blown up yet. And he's just this guy hanging out outside. And then, a few months later, all the other stuff happens. He's one of the biggest artists. And I've seen Alexa on Fire like 15 times. They're just on every bill I go to, they're a part of like festivals, or they're opening for someone, or someone I like's opening for them. And I just saw them at Blues Fest where they were headlining to like 40,000 people, to show all the
Wow.
way back from the 400 people at Babylon to 40,000 as a headliner. It's very cool to see the trajectory that they've been on.
Absolutely, man. I remember doing shows with them back when I was in The Weekend. One of the first Lexus on Fire videos, they have like these girls on roller skates going around them. The singer from The Weekend is one of those girls.
No way.
Like there's this like
Andrea?
connection between, yeah, Andrea was one of those like, the skater girls. Yeah, there's like this huge connection. And I remember, what was their record? Was it called Watch Out? Was that?
That was the second album. The first
Yeah.
one was Knife. The first one had the two girls in a knife fight on the cover, and it was
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
they described their music as the sound of two girls in a knife fight or something.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But I remember when Watch Out came out, because our manager at the time for The Weekend, a guy named Mark DiPietro, brought that record to us, and he's like, "This is what we have to beat,"
So
and he
good.
was totally right. Like, we were nowhere in the same like vein or like genre or anything like that. We're like, singing about being disconnected and stuff, not about knife fights. But it was just at that point that was the level that you kind of had to try to achieve if you wanted to get your head above water.
So after Never Ending White Lights, you work with Shiloh. So this is 2008 to 2010. And man, she released a top 10 album with four hit singles. The first single, Operator, A Girl Like Me, went platinum. She must have been so young when you worked with her.
Yeah, she was 15, I think, or like
15.
freshly 15. I remember her manager being like, "We got like a good like 5 years before she's 20." I'm like, "That's crazy. Like you're marketing this and like pushing this much money and stuff behind someone that is like, so young." But she was amazing. She was like a real talent, and like, she would be able to sit down with a piano and just like write melody and lyrics over chords as she's going at that age, like that would make you feel something. So there was something super special there with her. And it's weird, like her band, just the trajectory of each of the different people is crazy to me, because her guitarist from her original guitarist that was in that band is a guy named Dan Cantor. Do you know Cantor?
Oh yeah, he's with Bieber, right?
He was Bieber's guitarist, exactly. And then like the keyboard player was this girl named Kat, who ended up in Pink's band. The other guitarist that filled in was Ricky Tillo, who is Lady Gaga's guitarist. The bassist is Dave McMillan, who is in Big Wreck now. And
Wow,
then there was
that's like
me.
a super group. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And at that point, like back then, I was just like, how is this happening? How is everyone being poached to like these different things? Like it was crazy. But it was through Cantor how I ended up playing with Bieber as well. And Dave McMillan played with Bieber. And Cantor's still one of my like closest friends. He was actually at the Oshawa show on this tour. And I think he air drummed the entire set. Like it was beautiful.
That's amazing. I have some kind words sent in from someone that knows you from the Shiloh days. So this is
Ooh,
another drummer. This is from Dan Todd, who played drums for Honeymoon Suite and Platinum Blonde. He's now
totally.
in a duo called 416. And Dan says, I first saw Jason perform with a Canadian artist named Shiloh back in 2008, 2009. I watched Jason at Soundcheck and he immediately caught my ear. Wow, this kid is good. I stood side stage and realized this kid is a beast of a drummer and a great guy to boot, I might add. I've bumped into Jason a number of times through the years, on the road in Newfoundland, at Just Drums, etc. Mad respect, brother. Keep being blessed. So that's from Dan Todd.
Oh, that's very sweet of him. He's a wonderful human being and a great drummer.
And you mentioned Justin Bieber. So we move on. Justin Bieber and Carly Rae Jepsen, 2008 to 2010. I remember they were touring together for a while because of the label connection, Scooter Braun, all that stuff. Were you playing like for both of them on that tour, or is this two separate things?
Totally two separate things. Carly Rae, I started with her when she finished Canadian Idol. She had a song, what was it called?
Tug
I'm
of
blanking on
War,
it. Tug
Bucket.
of War.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the one. Yeah, she had that song, and I think we were mostly like opening for like Mariana's Trench and stuff like that back then. Then I started playing with her again after Call Me Maybe like blew up. I got a call. I was like, what was I doing? I was just sitting in my rehearsal hall. I think I was running stuff for another tour, and it was one of those situations being like, "Can you be in LA in like 2 days?" type thing. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm there." Like,
You keep getting
obviously.
these 2 day
Oh
notices.
yeah, oh yeah. It's always just like, okay, I don't need to sleep. Like, it's cool. It's cool. Um, but yeah, she's great. But Bieber was a completely separate thing. That was just I did a few things with him. I was supposed to hop on, I think it was the My World tour. Something that happened at Saturday Night Live where they were like replacing a member type thing. So I got called for that. But they went in a different direction like the morning of my flight. They were like, oh, we want to like go for a different kind of style thing. It being a tattooed guy that plays the drums the way I do, I bring a very specific thing to image and the performance. So it's very specific kind of what younger pop artists are looking for when they're branding their live show, you know. So
But you did end up like there's videos of you performing with Justin Bieber, right?
yeah,
On
yeah, yeah.
YouTube.
I
Yeah.
played with Bieber, and it was amazing. The kid was super talented, and I've never heard people screaming as loud as when Bieber walks on stage.
You witnessed Bieber fever up front, close
Oh
in
yeah,
person. Yeah.
yeah, man, absolutely. That was a trip. Like I remember when the Cantors first started playing with him, and they were like, playing maybe those like iHeart radio shows and stuff like that. And he's like, this kid's gonna be playing the Sky Dome. Like, mark my words, give it a year. He's going to be headlining like massive stadiums. And like clockwork, I just saw those dates get booked. I'm like, what the heck? Like, it's crazy to see something grow legs like that, but it's insane to see someone have the forethought and vision to be able to be like, this is what's actually happening and this is going to happen. Again, it's like, is that manifestation or is that just like having your finger on the button so much that you know what's gonna pop?
Yeah. Speaking of something that got legs, let's talk about Call Me Maybe for a second. So I was a finalist on Canadian Idol back in the day, and Carly Rae Jepsen was the final female finalist on the year I was on. So that's my connection to her. And
Wow.
so after Canadian Idol, which is where you come in and play drums with her, so she released, I believe, two independent albums that did well in Canada. They went gold in Canada. And then
Yeah.
there's the Justin Bieber connection. There's the famous story that he's doing dishes at his grandparents' place and he hears this Canadian hit, Call Me Maybe. It's only big here. And
Yeah.
he reaches out to Scooter Braun and says, okay, this song, nobody owns the rights to this outside of Canada. And then Scooter Braun picks it up, picks her up, releases an album. And that song, uh, gets nominated for 2 Grammys, and it's the best-selling single of the 21st century by a female artist with 18 million copies sold and over 1 billion streams on Spotify. So I just remember this young, like Joni Mitchell type acoustic singer-songwriter kind of finding her voice on Canadian Idol and then going
Yeah.
on to playing stadium shows around the world with Justin Bieber and selling 18 million copies of one song.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's absolutely insane. I guess when things actually click.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about Carly Rae, and then there's again more artists you worked with leading up to Our Lady Peace. In 2015, she put out an album called Emotion, and it was insanely critically acclaimed. Everyone loved it, and everyone. So it was one of my favorite albums of 2015. It's so good, and people think it's actually one of the major Grammy snubs for that year. That should have been nominated for Album of the Year, for Single, for all these things. It kind of underperformed commercially, but critically, everyone is obsessed with this album. So she's so
Crazy.
talented. It's way more than just Call Me Maybe, which was one song that took off.
Oh my God, yeah. No, she's always been amazing. And she's always been like such a like just sweet person. I remember one of the first things that we ever did was this show at the old MTV Masonic Temple. And I think Katy Perry was headlining. And oddly enough, OLP was on this bill as well. But Shiloh played and Carly Rae went on like right after us. And she was just like the sweetest human being. Like, and still is. I haven't talked to her for a few years now, but like, yeah, man. Like, it's nice to see people that are actually like beautiful human beings be able to have success, you know?
A good Canadian girl. So
Absolutely.
then we move on between 2011 and 2014. You work with Paramore, Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, Evans Blue, Treble Charger. Man, Haley Williams of Paramore, her voice might be my favorite female voice, period. Like
Oh,
such a talented singer. Can you say anything about her, I guess her voice as a
oh,
musician?
she's incredible. Like, she set a bar that is really almost unattainable for most people. As a performer, as a human being, I remember I was hounding their A&R guy because I had been put like into the hat. My name was put in the hat, but like I wasn't getting a call to come audition. And they had like you know, a book full of the best drummers on earth because everybody wanted that gig. And Josh Freese actually had the gig right before me. He was like, he did South America with them. And it came down to being me, the drummer from Dashboard Confessional, and another like LA studio guy. 3 dudes they flew in, and I remember landing in Nashville. And what was that movie? It's not Almost Famous or Rockstar. One of those where it's like the guy lands and there's a guy with like his name on the board and brings him to the studio. It was the exact same thing that happened to me. It was like my Jason Pierce. I'm like, what is this? And I get in a limo and they drive me to this rehearsal space, and I get in this small room with them, and I was so nervous but so excited, and I like learned pretty much the whole catalog, and we ended up just like jamming songs for probably like an hour. And Haley was like laying down on her monitor and like just so comfortable and so like, it was just such a good vibe. And then that evening we like had some beers around a fire at like Taylor's new house, and yeah, it was great. It was amazing, and their shows were just a completely different level. It like, I think my first show with them was in Prague. It was like 40,000 people. We're like headlining over all these huge bands. Like I saw like I think Sum 41 was on that bill back with like Steve Jobs was still in the band, and he was like, we knew each other, but like I was such a huge fan of him and like all that, like just being higher on the bill than them all of a sudden. Like it was crazy. Absolutely crazy. And I'm so thankful I had that experience in my life.
So you also worked with Evans Blue, which is a quite heavy band. I bought their album, The Melody and the Energetic Nature of Volume. It's hard to remember that title because of they had that big single Cold, but I'm Still Here. So I
Totally.
bought that album, and then you were on an album after that. And Evans Blue, man, they've sold over 1 million albums. They're awesome. Is it difficult to switch between all these different genres of music from the pop of Justin Bieber and Carly Rae Jepsen to the pop punk of Paramore, and you have Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, and then you have this like heavy Evans Blue band.
Oh, I get to use my double kick pedal. It's like one of the best days of my life. Yeah, Evans Blues like a really powerful band. I did what was the record called? Graveyards of Empires. That was the first record I did with them, which honestly is one of my favorite recorded drum sounds I've ever got in my life. This engineer, Glenn Brown, has a studio in Lansing, Michigan. I think it's GB Sound. And we recorded drums there. And I actually, I'm still in contact with this guy and everything. But like, he is such a incredible engineer, and he had this like old Neve board in his studio, and every microphone you could ever think of, and all his outboard gear was actually from Motown, like Motown Records. He like bought all this stuff and moved it into his studio in Lansing, Michigan. And yeah, man, it was like the pinnacle of what I want my drums to sound like was that record. And I ended up doing a bunch of like light touring with Evans Blue, a bunch of festival dates. We did like these album release parties in the States and stuff like that. And those guys are just like, they're solid, man. Like such good people. And it was kind of funny too, because when I was in Never Ending White Lights, Evans Blue was starting to come up, and we would do shows together.
These are
I never really
both London bands ish. Are they London area bands or no?
I think Evans Blue was more like Toronto, because they were signed
Okay,
to Pocket, which was Mary, Dew, and Trevor, who worked out of Weird Connection, Mike Turner's studio
nice.
in Toronto.
Original Our Lady Peace guitarist.
Exactly. So that's how I got to know like Mike Turner at first too. Before I like even, well, I had toured with OLP opening, but like before I knew any of those other guys like on a personal level, which is so crazy. And again, like the weird like connection thing, Mary Dew is the one that put me in contact with the A&R from Paramore. So that never would have happened if I hadn't have done like sessions in that studio or played with like Evans Blue or any of that stuff. It's all like just interconnected and kind of like just fell that way.
They say always it's only looking back that you can connect the dots. Like as they're happening, you're not sure what's going on, but when you look back, you can see the direct connection of how things led to where they are today, which is pretty sweet.
Dude, yeah, in the moment you're just like, I hope something sticks. I hope something connects. And then you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't need to be as stressed out as I felt in that moment.
The Evans Blue album, there was 3 singles, so this time it's different. Halo and Beyond the Stars. So all 3 of those charted in the top 40 on the Billboard charts, which is awesome. And man, we made it all the way to Our Lady Peace now. So there's so much to sink our teeth. We've been kind of sharing little tidbits of how you ended up with Our Lady Peace. So you first became aware of the band, it sounds like, because your sister was a fan. There was a Clumsy album, and you by performing with other artists, you end up in their bubble, performing shows with different members. There's the Mike Turner connection here with Evans Blue. How did you find out that Our Lady Peace was looking for a drummer?
Well, this is the management connection again, actually. I was hounding them because Finger 11 needed a drummer. And I was literally like emailing Rob Lanny probably like once a day, being like, is there any news? Is there any news? And then out of nowhere, I'm in my rehearsal space downtown at like Queen and Bathurst. And I get this email being like, this isn't about Finger 11, but like, would you be interested in prospectively like talking with OLP? I had no idea anything had happened. And it literally was maybe like a day after Taggart had like stepped down. So yeah, they emailed me. I met up with Duncan Coots, the bassist. We had coffee, a couple pastries as rock and roll guys do. And a couple days later, we just went like into his home studio, jammed through some songs, and I think it was like 3 or 4 days later, I got a call being like, "Would you be interested in coming out and like doing these summer shows with us?" So I started out as like just a hired live drummer because that's kind of what I did back then. I wasn't like committing to anything. I was floating between projects all the time. So yeah, we did those, and the rest is kind of just history. We hit it off in such a profound way that it's undeniable that these are the people that I need to be spending my time with.
This episode has been brought to you by the Women in the Music Industry podcast. It's hosted by music producer Rob Wells, who has worked with global superstars like Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and Selena Gomez. Through his 1-hour interviews, he shines a spotlight on the remarkable women who are breaking barriers and making their mark in the music industry. Some of his notable guests include Morgan Lander of the multi-million selling metal band Kitty, and Pam Shane, who co-wrote Genie in a Bottle for Christina Aguilera. If you're a fan of the Joel Martin Mastery podcast, you'll love the Women in the Music Industry podcast, which is available on all platforms. So you jammed with Duncan. There wasn't a full band audition. It was kind of just through you and Duncan. Duncan vouched for like, yeah, this is our guy, and then you got offered live shows.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't play with the whole band until I think a day or two before the first show. We did rehearsals. Coalition used to have a rehearsal showcase room built into a cathedral in their old offices. And yeah, we rehearsed there for like a day and then flew out for the first few shows, which was crazy. It was like, just what Superman's Dead and Clumsy and 4 a.m. with those songs from that record meant to me as a human and as like a kid growing up. Being part of those songs being recreated live was like mind blowing. I couldn't believe that like all this time in tour buses and airplanes and hotels and airports has led to, being able to like really connect my heart with something that means so much to me.
And do you remember the exact moment that you received the news that you were going to be playing shows with Our Lady Peace?
Yeah, I was oddly enough, I was in Coalition because I was producing a band called Kink. We were doing a record there, and my phone was ringing and it was Coots. I just picked it up. I walked into the live room and he told me right then, and I was shaking. I'm like, this is happening. Like, I can't believe this is happening.
And what were the challenges of joining a band that has already achieved so much success?
Well, I think the biggest challenge to start with was trying to do justice to the drum parts and to the songs themselves. Like, what, as we had hit on already, like what Jared put down on those songs, it's timeless stuff that deserves respect. So it was trying to make sure that I'm paying homage to what he had created that had made the songs, as important as they are. Besides that, it was just getting over my own nerves on it. Some people say they don't get nervous and stuff like that. I am constantly in my head worried about being able to perform just because like what I do is so full body encompassing that I used to get wrist pain. If my back's hurting, that's a thing, all sorts of things, so it's just like getting out of my own way in those situations because I've been doing it so long that I know I can do it. It's just, there's a mental block there sometimes.
Would you say you were more nervous at the start of joining the band, or were you more excited? So more nervous that, oh my God, this is a band I love and an iconic Canadian band, or were you more excited that, man, I'm the guy for this job. I'm excited for this.
Oh, I was more excited, totally more excited. I think I was most nervous when I asked to become a member because it wasn't like they offered that to me or anything like that. We were sitting around in a Rain studio and I brought it up. I was like, this is just where I want to go with this. And I was sweating buckets, like completely, like, yeah. But the guys were really really open to the idea and supportive, and they always have been. That's like they're just the sweetest guys. And yeah, I'm thankful that everything has worked out the way it has, and that these guys are in my life.
So, they already had so many albums. There's so many songs that you have to learn from that discography. Is there some science to learning that many songs? Does a band start by providing you with a list of like, hey, if we were to play live tomorrow, these are the 15 songs we would be playing. So start with these and then try adding songs as you go over time. Is there a science to this?
That's totally what it is. Like when we first started out, I think they sent me a set list, and then there was like a list of audibles, which are just songs that Rain might call. And it's still the same thing to this day. Like even with this last tour, there was a list of songs that we're definitely going to do, but we're going to throw into different set lists. And then there's going to be audibles that they might get called. So be prepared. Um, it hasn't ever been like learn every last OLP song, because there's so many. Like there's just so many songs.
And what would you say is what was the most challenging Our Lady Peace song to learn? And we're talking about Jeremy, and it's not like it's playing Meshuggah or something, just like
Yeah,
where your arms are gonna fall off. But sometimes it's the timing or just the uniqueness of his playing that maybe it's not something you would have normally played. Like it can be, it's not that hard to play, but it's awkward to play, so it kind of goes against
100%.
your style.
Yeah, Angels Losing Sleep. That song 100%. I remember when Never Ending White Lights was opening for OLP on the Paranoid Times tour. And I remember the first show they sound checked that song. And I'm just like, what the hell, man? It's what his foot's doing underneath that is just creating this like rolling momentum thing that, you stop that and the whole song would just kind of train wreck. So I actually remember one of my first OLP shows, we were playing that song, and we had done it in sound check, and I went to have a nap that afternoon before we had to play, and I couldn't sleep because I was like obsessing about the bridge. I was like tapping it out of my legs, like my foot's going in the bed, like yeah, totally. It's that song 100%. And yeah, I get stoked now when we get to play that. We don't play it every show, but like when we do, it's like I feel like I've put so much time and energy into that song that I feel like I can kind of connect with it in a way that's pretty unique.
So we have a fan question sent in. This is from Megan Port, and this is my friend that I brought to meet you guys at the show in Ottawa in April. So
Nice.
I thought I was a big OLP fan. I think that was my fifth time seeing you guys. This was her 15th time,
Oh wow.
and she got to meet you guys, and I didn't even know that she was that big of a fan before. But afterwards, she posted a picture with Duncan and Rain, and she put a dream come true. This is the best night of my life. Like I had no idea that that night had that impact on her. So the right person benefited from that show, which is awesome. And she sent
I
in a
love that.
question. So this is from Megan. She asks, how have you impacted OLP's sound, and how has playing with OLP impacted your drumming?
Hmm. I feel like OLP's made me more musical. Um, Back when I first came into the band, I kind of played dynamically less. I feel like I was kind of like shifting at like a certain level, and I never dropped down to where OLP has brought me. OLP will go from like a whisper to a scream. There's such a huge, vast difference in not just like, volume, but like it creates like a feel thing. So that's definitely been something that's made me grow as a musician. My impact on OLP, I think I brought a bit of edge that, they were not necessarily lacking, but something that like brought a different flavor to the band. And just my excitement. I have so much love for the people and the songs that I feel like that is maybe one of my stronger things. It's just I care, you know.
So we're gonna dive into the two studio albums that you've done. Final question before that. So as well as playing with Our Lady Peace, you also play with Chantel Kreviazuk. So for those that don't know, this is Our Lady Peace singer Rain Maida's wife, who's also an
Mhm.
incredible musician. Man, I remember her debut single "Surrounded" when that came out way back. I was so young when that came out, and I remember the music video. I was obsessed with her. She was like my crush when I was a kid. So she's incredible. And there's a fan question. So this is from Dustin Pomeroy, the person that recommended that we do this interview. And his question is, does he feel like a child of divorced parents fighting for custody when he bounces back and forth between OLP and Chantel Kreviazuk? Seriously, though, super cool that he plays for both her and Rain. So a silly question from Dustin.
That's funny. That's really funny. Not so much. She's incredible. Yeah, man. The first time I ever did anything with her, it was with Rain and Chantel because they've had like all these side projects like Moon vs. Sun. I think it's just Rain and Chantel now. Um,
And
but we
tours
were
together,
playing.
right?
Yeah, exactly. The first thing we ever did was at the Olympic Amphitheater in where the hell is that? Just outside of Vancouver. What's the big ski thing? Ski place there?
Uh,
Whistler.
Whistler, BC. Yeah.
That's yeah. Duncan would kick my butt for not knowing that. He is such an avid skier. But yeah, we were playing this like the Olympic Amphitheater there, and it was just it connected. Things just felt so good that after that, Chantel started calling me for stuff, and she's like such an amazing, caring human being, and like such an incredible performer. We just did a live at Massey Hall that is being released soon for CBC. We did that in I think when was that? Was that December already? I'm losing my mind.
That was with Chantel.
With Chantel, yeah, it's like I said, it's not out yet. I don't think. I saw a draft of it, and it's like I'm extremely proud of it. I don't think I've ever heard a mixed for TV thing that is sounds that amazing, full, rich, and like articulated. Like everything about that is just so good, man. Um, and yeah, it's crazy. Like you mentioned that song "Surrounded." My mother passed away when I was 26, and that was her favorite song. So when I hear Chantel sing that, it's like again one of those full circle things, being like, how am I around something that has such a huge gravity and impact on my personal life again? Like it just doesn't make sense to me sometimes. But yeah, she's amazing. I actually she asked me to do some dates this summer, and I can't make any of them because OLP is so busy. So I'm a little heartbroken I don't get to do those, but we'll get back at that.
That's kind of funny that you can't do some of her dates because of her husband's band. Like
Has to be Battle
you
Man,
feel like she'll just be like, dude, like what are you doing? Like we need
right?
him for a few shows. Yeah. It feels
Yeah,
like
no,
it's an easy conversation in there. She has the inside connection, so
yeah, no, absolutely. Like you'd think she'd know I was busy, but it's okay. It's okay.
they both have their own crazy schedules. So man, Massey Hall is considered one of the greatest venues on the planet, one of the best sounding venues on the planet. What is it like to play there? I'm sure you growing up at some point you must have seen a concert at Massey Hall before playing there.
I had never been to a show there.
Oh
I was
wow.
supposed to. Well, kind of a long story. Do you remember Ashley Simpson?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, her drummer Chris Fox was a buddy of mine, and we used to like swap drum kits over the internet. So in the Pieces of Me video, like that AOT kit was actually my kit that I bought as a kid. And he was coming through Massey Hall with her and invited me to the show. But I lived in London and I was so young, I couldn't even get up there or anything. So that was like my only opportunity to go to a show at Massey. And besides that, like the first time I played there was with Carly Rae opening for Trench, Mariana's Trench. But that room is just incredible, man. Like it's so cool. I played there probably like nearly 10 times at least now. OLP's done so many shows there, and I played there with Chantel, and like I'm actually I think I'm in the book. There's a Massey Hall book because at a sound check for OLP, this fan asked his girlfriend to marry him, and like that whole like process and that story made it into the Massey Hall book. So it's crazy. Like, yeah, man. Like to be part of that history.
I just thought of a connection in my head with, so you keep mentioning Carly Rae Jepsen and Mariana's Trench. Uh,
Yeah,
Josh, the singer from Mariana's Trench, actually co-wrote Call Me Maybe as well.
he produced it too, I
Oh, he
think. Yeah,
produced it. So that's a wild
and
connection.
co-wrote. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And
Yeah,
man, Massey Hall, I saw Death Cab for Cutie there. I saw Ryan Adams there. I've seen lo- lots of artists there. It's man, it must be so cool to play there. I remember, so I was all the way at the back, which there's no bad seat in the house. It's not a huge
yeah,
venue, but I was all the way at the back, and I for maybe it was Ryan Adams. He's playing a song just solo acoustic. And even though I'm the furthest seat from him, it sounded like he was standing beside me, like we were at a campfire, and he was just playing and singing. It didn't sound like there was any microphones or amplification. It just sounded
totally.
like the source audio. It was wild.
That's crazy, man. That's special.
Yeah,
Well,
that's how
that's
good
like
that venue is.
well that venue, and that like ties back to that whole like Dallas Green thing being like when it's real, it's real. Like crap inputs, crap output. If it's like the vibes there and that performance is there, then it's incredible, man. But yeah, Massey's so special. Like, I remember my first time playing there, just being so nervous. Like,
So in 2018, Our Lady Peace releases the album Somethingness, and
yeah.
this is your first album with Our Lady Peace. So how excited were you after the years of touring? Originally, you were a hired live drummer, and then
Mhm.
eventually you are on a legit Our Lady Peace album. How excited were you for that experience? And maybe you could talk a little bit about maybe the writing or recording of that album.
Yeah, I was super excited. I remember the night before we were flying out. Well, we recorded like that record in different like batches of songs as we do. And the first batch was "Drop Me in the Water," "Falling into Place." What else did we record that?
So it was two EPs, I guess, to start, and then eventually it was together as a full length.
Exactly. I think we were trying to get the EP out, the first one out with "Drop Me in the Water" because we were going out with Guns N' Roses. So it was
Hmm.
kind of like having some ammo there to be able to like, launch off of. But the night before we were flying out to do "Drop Me in the Water" and those songs, first off, I had never heard those songs till I got in the studio. But the night before, I was trying to make chicken parm for my now wife, and a big uh, glump, a big amount of olive oil jumped out of the pan right on the top of my hand, and my hand just bubbled up to the point like I can't like move my hand properly. I'm like I've ruined it. Like my opportunity's gone. They're gonna have to get like some session drummer in Los Angeles now to do this all. But luckily, I made it through. I had like a piece of my hand falling off as I'm recording. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
left
I
a
still
part of
played through.
yourself on that album,
You can hear my
or at
pain
least
in the drum
physically in
part.
that studio. Yeah.
Yeah, man. But yeah, we were in Jackson Brown's studio in Santa Monica, and I get into the studio and I'm like, boys, what are we recording? They're like, oh, you haven't heard the songs? I'm like, no one sent me anything. So kind of like that Josh Freese 12 Stone thing, just like I charted it out. We went in and just like banged them out, and it worked out great. Um, Luckily, I was able to perform under that pressure and the pain. And yeah, man, that was like really special. It was like the first time that we were live off the floor as a band creating something like that. And it was incredible, man.
And do you have a favorite part of the recording process? Is it the writing of the songs, the jamming and fleshing out the songs with the other members? Is it the actual recording? Is it once it's released, the promoting of it and the touring and the making of the music videos? Is there a favorite chunk in there?
I love all of it. Like, there's something really special about when you're in the studio and you're creating something. Um, just the process of trying to flush out parts, arrangements, stuff like that, and then actually like having the painting in your head and actually performing it. It's incredible. There's so much magic in all of that. From the writing perspective, even to this day, Sometimes I write ideas and I submit them. Sometimes it's me and Duncan. But like everyone kind of puts in their 2 cents, and it's always for the best of the project, the best of the song. That's just how OLP operates. It's totally selfless. It's not about any of us or egos or anything like that. It's literally what is best for this band, what is best for this record, you know. So yeah, it's the whole process, man. And I love touring. I love playing shows. It's got its own set of challenges now that I have a 5-year-old and, yeah, and a life, you know. But I wouldn't trade any of that for the world. Like it, I can't believe it's a job. Like sometimes it feels like work, but at the same point, it's like, I get to play drums in front of tens of thousands of people and play on songs that mean things to other people. So, you know, very thankful.
And how good did it feel once Drop Me in the Water is out at radio as a single? You're hearing that, and then it's release day, and you get a physical copy of Something This, the album, in your hand. How does that, like, oh, this is the official OLP member moment here?
Yeah, it's happened. Yeah. No, yeah, it felt incredible. I remember sitting in the graphic artist's studio with Duncan as we were like creating the album cover. Like it's crazy that it's crazy and amazing that they supported me in that way that early on in my career as a member too. Like making sure that I felt like I had a say in things like that. Because at that point, like I don't know if I would have let someone else have any sort of artistic control over the art on an album or anything like that. Because why would you? There's really no reason to unless you actually love that person's input or want that person to actually be more of a part of things,
So we have a fan question. This might be the sweetest fan question of the interview. This is from Andrew White. His question is, he says, huge OLP fan since 95. How does it feel once fans come up to you or other members of OLP stating that your music gives them a sense of self-worth, confidence, and dignity that they forget they have sometimes? Listening to OLP music truly helps when one is going through a rough time. If you come back to Newfoundland, please play Denied. All the best. Stay safe on the road. That's from Andrew White.
Denied. I love it. Yeah, he's a sweetie. I've met him a few times. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy the impact a lot of these songs have had on people. We see that kind of like time and time again when we're doing like the VIPs. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we do like a VIP kind of meet and greet thing before the shows every night. And yet, I feel the same way about the songs. Like those songs have got me through stuff too, and we all feel that same way about music in general, obviously, because this is what we do. But like, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, and it's amazing the way that people can use OLP songs as almost like therapy, to get them through whatever they're going through.
So in 2021, you guys put out Spiritual Machines 2. So this is a sequel to the beloved double platinum concept album from 2000. So that original album had the hit singles In Repair, Life, and Right Behind You, Mafia. When did the idea of making a sequel to that beloved album start to fester, start to take hold?
Well, we started recording for that album cycle before the world shut down with COVID. We were out with Live in Bush, doing like an amphitheater tour through the States in 2019. And we had locked in to work with a guy named Dave Sidick, who was in a band called TV on the Radio. He produced the Yeah and Weezer and a bunch of really cool stuff.
He did Beyonce and Jay-Z. He did some stuff with them.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But we ended up at his studio, and we were working on Stop Making Stupid People Famous. That was the first song that we finished for that record. So that kind of like laid the groundwork for that. I'm not 100% sure when the concept for Spiritual Machines 2 really came to fruition. I just know that the rest of the record, because of the gravity of what was going on with the world at that time, we had to do it all remote. So it was like cutting drums, sending them to Los Angeles with the time change and the different projects the producers were working on, waiting for them to listen to stuff, being like, no, 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 change this part. And I'm like, okay, good thing I didn't move my mics for 2 days and go and like try to like punch in and make things work. It was a very different record to make. And like challenging in the way that like when you're hashing parts out as a band together, you're obviously feeding off each other and creating something in the room in the moment. And you don't have that opportunity when everything is done separately. You're trying to find the beauty in the moments without having the fuel of other people, if that makes sense.
So the album had two singles. You mentioned already Stop Making Stupid People Famous. The other one was Future Disease. Was there a fear in making a sequel to an album that people love so much?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I just found it really cool to, try to continue the legacy of that record, especially with like the Ray Kurzweil stuff. And I don't know if you know, but a lot of those like the tracks where Ray is talking, I did like a lot of that sound design underneath it. So like getting to like create like those weird sounds and like create those moments of something that kind of harks back to something I grew up on was like incredible.
And you mentioned this was in the middle of the pandemic. So
Yeah.
the pandemic, there's so much fear and chaos and uncertainty and all these things. Did it feel cathartic to release something positive during such a negative and strange time?
Yeah, totally. I feel like that's a positivity coming from Rain that like really it was beautiful and it really helped. Like I just loved the way that it wasn't dark and it was, especially with like Kurzweil's predictions and stuff, just being like the future isn't chaotic. It doesn't have to be chaotic. It can all come together for the greater good.
We have a fan question from John Michael Liliev. His question is, what is a moment where you sat there behind the kit and just thought, wow, I can't believe I get to do this?
It happens sometimes. Like I don't know, as a performer, you have to learn that it's never gonna always be perfect. There's moments that make you realize why you do it. It makes you realize that like it can click and be amazing. I even had that on this last tour, a couple of shows where I'm looking out and I'm like just so thankful that this is like happening right now. As hard as it is, being away from everything you love, it's just there's so many people that wish they could be in that moment that like if you don't have that little moment of clarity knowing that like you're thankful for it, then what's it worth? And even back to like my first, I think it was my first OLP show, we were playing with Rob Thomas at the Oxford Stomp in Calgary, and I looked out and it was one of those again being like I'm so thankful for this. So it does happen when things click properly.
So, in listening to that album, I believe I hear some programmed drums, which makes sense for an album about technology and machines and that kind of stuff. Is programming something that drummers these days they have to learn? Like that has to be a tool in the toolkit besides just being a great drummer that you have to learn technology and programming and samples and computers?
I think some people can get away without doing it depending on the genre and like what they're doing with it. But that's just not me. I've produced a lot of records, mixed records, and been on the other side of it. So the whole programming thing, I really embraced. A lot of the like programming stuff, especially with Spiritual Machines 2, is like overlaid over actual drums and stuff to try to like tie into that sound. Um, but yeah, like I don't know if like I don't think if you're like playing in a jazz band, you necessarily need to know how to make an 808 sound good. But like to have a broader stroke, it's probably something that is totally intuitive with what is going on.
So we mentioned original Our Lady Peace guitarist Mike Turner a little bit earlier in the interview. He came back to be a part of this album because he had a big part to do with the original Spiritual Machines album. So this is
Yes.
he came back. He helped work on this album. It's his first since 2002, Gravity in 2002. What a couple questions. What was his involvement in this album, and what was it like to have like the OG back for that process?
I believe his involvement on the record was one of those Kurzweil songs or Kurzweil tracks where he's talking. He did the music underneath one of those. His biggest impact with that whole time period was the tour because we did the Wonderful Future tour, did it in two different legs, but we had these huge holographic boxes on stage, which were awesome. Maybe a little bit of a pain in the ass, but they were pretty awesome. And for the lion's share of the shows, Turner wasn't there, but his holograph was there for some of the songs, which was so badass. But some of the shows, like the bigger markets, I think it was like Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, Turner actually came out to those shows. So he would start as a
Nice.
holograph and then he would walk on stage as like a reveal, which was crazy.
People
Like
probably didn't expect that at all after all this
totally,
time.
people didn't expect that. And it's just, some of those older songs, it's just they're in his fingers the way he plays them. And like it's the same as like, Jimmy Chamberlain with the Pumpkins when you hear him play those older songs. Like no one else sounds like that. As much as anyone wants to try to sound like that, it's like it's just inherent in their being and their soul that like that's just what they sound like. So it was crazy to actually hear that. And Turner's such a great guy too. Like I've had a long history with him.
So I find that the equivalent of us talking about Jeremy Taggart and his very unique drum playing on those original albums, I find Mike Turner is the exact same for guitar. Like his guitar
Totally.
playing is so unique that those, you know, I guess up until Gravity, those albums, the guitar is a part of what made the Our Lady Peace sound so unique back then. Do you agree with that? It's a
100%.
very different guitar playing.
100%, man. Yeah, it was just the way that he thought of like notes and chords. It was extremely unique, and for that time period in music, for when that record came out, like it was a real integral part of what made those songs. Totally.
So we have a fan question. This is from Noelle Gray, and she was actually in an Our Lady Peace music video for a song called "The Right Stuff" off of the deluxe edition of Burn Burn. So Noelle asks, "What is the band you have yet to work with that would be a dream come true?"
Oh man, that's a hard one. Um, Nine Inch Nails, maybe. Like I love that band. I just love like heavy music. When it connects, and it doesn't have to be like a lot of notes. It's just there's a mood with it. And I think Trent Reznor is so talented. Like anything that guy touches. I think that would be like the ultimate. That or like Guns N' Roses. Again, that would be a full circle thing. But like or Brian Adams. I love Brian Adams a bit too much.
That's awesome. I was going to get my dad tickets for his birthday to the Eagles that were playing Ottawa, but I think nosebleeds are normally $60, $80 for a lot of concerts. It's changed a bit during the pandemic, but I was trying to get just nosebleeds and it was, I don't know, 300, 400, $500 for nosebleeds to the Eagles. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know if I or he likes them that much. And then Brian Adams announces he's playing the arena and tickets are like $30 and we're like, what? So I get him tickets and we go and he plays for 2 hours and every song is the biggest hit single you've ever heard. Like he can play just singles. And my dad
Oh,
turns to me and he's like, this is a soundtrack of my life. That's how I know I picked the right concert. So Brian
my
Adams
God.
is amazing. And then when you mentioned Nine Inch Nails, I always say the best concert I've ever seen in my life was Nine Inch Nails. And I was at that show because I was a Queens of the Stone Age fan. So it was Death from Above 1979, Queens of the Stone Age, Nine Inch Nails. So I'm there
Wow.
for Queens of the Stone Age. I'm familiar with Nine Inch Nails at that point. I respect them, but I'm not a fan. And
Totally.
they took someone that wasn't there as a fan, and it was by far the best thing I've ever experienced in my life. Every part of it, the the songs, the performances, the audio, the visual, the videos, the not banter because he's not talking a lot, but just the way he communicates with the crowd. Uh, you could feel a touch of genius on
Totally.
everything involved in that concert, and you know that genius is Trent Reznor.
100%. Like he puts the work and the time into it too. I'm uh, before they went out when Freeze was in the band, I had heard they were in rehearsals for something like 6 months. Like they put
Jeez.
so much time into like the minutia of everything, which is incredible. But that's like that shows. Like that's not like no one's riding on the seat of their pants or anything or flying on the seat of their pants in that situation. Everyone's like knows every second of what's going to happen. And like at that point, you can kind of muscle memory everything, and it's like you don't have to think, which is the best way to be able to perform. Like,
So
yeah.
yeah, and then I saw them again. So that was in Montreal, and then years later, I saw them at a festival in Philly, and somehow it's still Queens of the Stone Age and Nine Inch Nails as the two headliners.
No
And
way.
and that Nine Inch Nails show was completely different from the one in Montreal. And I would say that's those two are the two best shows I've ever seen. Like they can't
Wow,
miss. They're so good.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
Nice, man.
yeah.
I love that.
So this Spiritual Machines 2, this comes out in 2021. So that's the last full length Our Lady Peace album. Since then, you guys, for the 30-year anniversary of Naveed, you guys have been releasing these EPs, and there's new songs on these EPs. Uh, I'm asking as a Our Lady Peace fan, are there plans for a new full length album, or is there a volume four, another EP coming out? Can you share anything? You can tell me to take a bus, but I have to ask on behalf of the fans.
No, no, no. Yeah. We released those three, like basically greatest hits EPs leading up to this tour. But we're working on a full length right now. We've just only recorded the three songs. There's a huge amount of songs written and ready to go. It's just been a matter of like trying to find timing and make things like line up to be able to get together to record. We were supposed to like last summer, and then like we were on the phone talking details, and my wife fell off the deck and like almost broke her foot. And I'm like, what is happening right now? So we ended up having to like cancel that recording trip, and like it's just been like a bunch of little things that have kind of been roadblocks. But actually, I think in about an hour and a half, I have a call with the boys about recording. So something's going to happen, I'm sure.
Ooh, that's exciting. So, with the final 20 minutes or so of this interview, I'd love to talk about the live show. You
Yeah,
guys
absolutely.
just wrapped up the 30th anniversary of Naveed tour. So it was you guys and Collective Soul, and then on selective dates there was different bands. Lucky for me, here in Ottawa, it was Winter Sleep opening, who's my favorite band of all time. I've got their
They're
album
amazing.
here. They're man, those guys are so good. So for me, when I see Winter Sleep, my favorite band, and then Our Lady Peace, a band I love, and then Collective Soul, that people my age, guitarists growing up, we're learning those Collective Soul guitar riffs that are simple but incredible. So I
Totally.
had never seen Collective Soul before. So as soon as I see the triple bill, I buy a ticket. Like that's such a no brainer. So can you talk about now that that tour wrapped up? That was February and March. It's funny you can now look back at that tour, and if you could share anything about that tour. What was that tour like? It was a massive success. You could see the just packed arenas everywhere you guys went. I witnessed the Ottawa show where all three bands were incredible. So it was such a success musically on the night of. What can you say about that tour now wrapping it up in a bow those 2 months?
Wow. Like looking back, there was a bit of chaos. And not in like a performance way or anything like that. It was like just logistics on the whole thing. I don't know what kept happening. I think we went through something like six tour buses on that tour because they just kept breaking down. The last one we had, there was like it was a star coach, so it was a bedroom in the back, and it was just the band bus. So like no one slept in the back. That was like Rain was like, we'll put our bags back there. And I'm like, I respect that. Like you're not taking like a hierarchy thing being here. Like I'm taking the suite in the back. It's like, no, we're all gonna sleep in our bunks and we'll put our backpacks on that king size bed in the back. But the back lounge area where the bed was, there was a flood. So it became like a marsh back there. Like you couldn't step on the carpet because like water would squirt up at you and everything. And then it became like, the smell of like a moldy carpet and like just weird stuff like that. And even to the point of we were supposed to fly out to Calgary to do production rehearsals in the Saddle Dome, and I was making dinner for my family, and I get a notification from my car service that there's been a plane crash at YYZ. I'm like, oh, really? Like, I have to like go to Pearson right now and get on a plane as they're trying to clean up a plane crash. It was so strange. Like, just like weird things kept just happening in that way that like Duncan dubbed the tour like the planes, trains, and automobile tour because it was just, anything goes at that point. Like, uh, but yeah, the shows were so much fun, like so much fun. And like the reaction from the fans and just like the quantity of the fans that were coming out in droves for these shows. Like it was incredible, man. Like I haven't seen anything like that with this band since I've been a part of it. Like shows have always been big and successful, and like the songs have meant a lot of to people, but like not like this. This has been like a resurgence, maybe. Like I feel like there's more relevance now with the band than there has been in the last 11 years that I've been around.
Do you think it was the nostalgia of Naveed that it's such a beloved album?
It could be. It totally could be that. I don't know. I feel like there's been more people have cared more about the 90s again. There's trends. There was the 80s before, the 90s. Now it's more like 2000s and stuff like that. But like it was just a relevance thing too that like has kind of made that time period more important to people, maybe. And it's great. It's great to be a part of that.
I keep seeing, for some reason, Edmonton loves to give you Edmonton Oiler jerseys. I've seen, I think, at least two of them. Is there a story behind Edmonton just wanting to make sure you're wearing the right Canadian jersey for them?
Well, the really funny part is that I'm like not a sports fan in any way. Like I saw my first hockey game when we played that Stanley Cup playoff, and I got to like sit in the owner's box and like watch that. And I'm like, this is amazing. I'm like, I don't think I'm really getting the full experience as I'm hitting a buffet on an open bar. But like the jerseys are another story. I sent my luggage home halfway through the tour because I had so many jerseys I couldn't even close my suitcase anymore. And they're all hanging up in my closet upstairs. Like maybe one day my kid will be into sports and he can wear them. But like
We
it's
have
funny.
a fan question about the tour. So this is from Elizabeth Moon, and her question is, since you've asked fans to come up with a playlist for the band's 30th anniversary tour, how do you narrow down 30 years of music into one tour? And will there be a special edition vinyl sold on the tour?
Oh, that's a good idea. I'm not quite sure. I can't answer that. But narrowing down the songs, that was a heck of a process. I know Rain kept setting like song lists out, and then he'd be like, "Oh, nope, nope," and like changing stuff. And there was quite a few songs that even were on that list that we didn't end up playing on this tour. Like I think we played "Happiness in the Fish" maybe once, which I kind of wish we played more, to be honest, because for me as a fan of the band, that one really meant a lot to me. And trying to do that one like proper justice too, because the drums are so cool on that song. Um, but yeah, it's a process trying to actually like slim down that massive catalog into something that's going to be nostalgic and hit proper, if that makes sense.
It's yeah, man. It's the gift and the cur it's I mean, it's the curse you want to have, but it's the gift and the curse of a band that's had 33 hit singles, right? Like
Yeah.
most people can't get one hit. So for you guys, 33 hit singles for Our Lady Peace. And even if you guys just did singles for your entire, it looked like it was like a 2 hour set. Um,
Yeah.
it's still more than 2 hours worth of music. So if you didn't even play new songs and covers, you couldn't get through all the singles anyway. So there's always going to be a song or two that aren't in the set list that people maybe want.
Totally, man. And we did this halftime show for the Alouettes in Montreal. I think like 2 years ago or something like that. And it's the only time we've ever done like a medley, which was the craziest thing. Rain had like suggested which songs to do, and then I had to like cut them up and figure out how we're doing this all. And it was crazy to go from like hit to hit to hit to hit to hit in like such a short amount of time. But you're right. There's so many songs. Like,
I got good news the other day that just as your 30th anniversary tour wrapped up, you guys decide to keep the fun going and you announce that was Canada. And then it gets announced that there's now a US tour coming up that is Collective Soul now as the headliner in their country with Our Lady Peace opening. And then Live,
yeah.
who is a great band I saw here at Blues Fest. Are how happy are you that the fun and games get to continue longer with that tour? And if our fans listening today go out and buy a ticket for that tour, what can they expect from Our Lady Peace?
Well, on shows like that, because of our set length and stuff like that, it's probably going to be focused more on hits. So you'll hear the songs that you're going there to hear. But from like a perspective personally, I can't wait. Collective Soul are such sweet dudes. Specifically their drummer Johnny Rabb. He was one of my heroes growing up, and to get to know that guy, like he is just so freaking nice and so sweet and so humble that is exactly, what you want to become, like as a person and as an artist. And then you got Live, and I actually have a side project that I'm doing writing with Zach Loy, who's the guitarist from Live. So like we have like this amazing relationship, and we toured together back in 2019 when we were out with Bush and them. So it's going to be great. It's like those amphitheater tours. It kind of feels like summer camp. You get up off your bus, you go look for a cup of coffee at a shower, and get ready for a sound check. Hit catering, play the show, hit catering again because you can, and then like just chill out and watch great music being performed by people that you love and respect. So it's going to be great. I can't wait. And then we're actually spinning that tour minus Live. We're playing Bud Stage in Toronto in July with Collective Soul, which is being branded. It's going to be the same like production and tour basically as the OLP 30 that we're bringing it out for that.
And there's some festival dates as well. There's a Quebec festival where you're playing the same day with Moist, another great Canadian band.
Yep.
Um, I messaged you during Collective Soul's set. I messaged being like, "Man, this drummer is crushing it." So like I wasn't familiar with him, and I was like, "He's hitting like the snare hit." Their drums sounded incredible, and it was like you could just the snap on that kit from when they were playing was awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. And he has the whole thing called like the freehand technique. He has like books and probably videos and stuff like that about like this whole like one hand drum roll technique that he coined. He's like a pioneer, this guy, Johnny Rabb. And he actually had his own stick company at one point too, that I had those sticks when I was a kid. And yeah, it's super strange to get to know people that you respect in that way. But like it's amazing when you meet someone that you respect in that way and they're also just a freaking great human being. Because I don't feel like that always happens. It doesn't always go hand in hand that like someone that has success and is like at that level is necessarily a great person as well, you know?
So the Ottawa show where I met you was, I believe, Friday the 7th. So it was Sunday the 9th that you were in London, your birthday. Is that right?
Well, we played London on the 8th, and then
8th.
my birthday was the 9th.
Okay, so yeah, you had a birthday home show in London,
Yeah.
and I saw, I think, a picture where Collective Soul kind of celebrated your birthday
Yeah, they came into the dressing room before the show and they all sang me happy birthday and gave me a couple of Star Wars shirts.
in perfect harmony as a band can do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm like, you guys are way too sweet. And then after the show, which was crazy because like I was playing my hometown arena and it was sold out and my sister was there and like all these like old bandmates and stuff. So there was this after show upstairs at the arena of like 70 people. And that's where Rain and the other guys surprised me with three big birthday cakes, and like the whole room erupted in a happy birthday, and it was just like so sweet. Like those guys, it's such an amazing like family unit, and the way that like they treat people, it's so respectable.
We have a fan question from Victoria, BC. This is from Allison Chapman. Her question is, what's the most embarrassing or funny thing that's happened on stage during a concert? Does anything come to mind that you'd like to share?
It's that first tour at the weekend again. My drum throne let go and I fell backwards, like
Off?
during a show. And I was a featherweight back then too. I was like 130 pounds, if that. And I just like, very interesting. Very,
And
very
in a
interesting.
moment, there was just no drummer.
Yeah, yeah. Total spinal tap. There was, not spontaneously combusted, but like I was gone. I wasn't there anymore.
That's funny. The band turns around, just no idea what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
We have another question. This is from Jerseys for Drummers that I believe you're familiar with on Instagram.
Oh,
So they say, they ask, what are your favorite OLP drum riffs? And what are your favorite non-OLP drum riffs that push your limits behind the kit? And then he asked if you could be a drummer for any artist, who would it be? So you kind of answered that with maybe Nine Inch Nails if you could play with a band that you love. But so
totally.
I guess what are your favorite drum riffs from OLP and then from maybe artists that aren't OLP?
Man,
Any tasty riffs that come to mind?
it might even just be like the drum intro to Innocent. Like there's something so like open but powerful about it. And like getting to play that live too, it's like you can hear it's one of those things where like, you'll have a guitar riff, you'll play once and the whole audience knows what song it is. That drum intro is so integral to that sound and that song that like you can hear an arena erupt just with drums. So that comes to mind for that. As for like a non OLP, that's a pretty tough one.
So
Might even
When you mentioned Dave Grohl being one of your favorites, it makes me think of Dave Grohl playing on the Queens of the Stone Age album, Songs for the
oh my
Deaf.
god,
That
yeah.
there's the one song that's like a 1 minute drum solo intro. I feel like that song would be a good one. But what would be your choice? What do you think?
Yeah, totally. Well, you know what? Even just like the opening snare hits on Judith, that Perfect Circle song, that alone, it's like there's something so signature about that. Like if you didn't play that part right and hit into that song, you would be doing like a massive injustice.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a haunting song too.
Oh yeah.
We have kind words sent in from another great Canadian drummer. This is from Jeremy Kleinhunts, drummer for Jan Arden, Alessia Cara, and Cardinal Official. Jeremy says, Jason is a wealth of knowledge and experience. He's a fellow bro in the drumming scene who is always, always, always down to share his input or advice with me on recording, mics, drums, etc. A true lad. So that's from Jeremy.
Oh, I love him. He's a sweetheart, man, and a great drummer as well. Like I love the stuff he does. He has his own home studio, and his sounds are just like I love it.
Is that a thing that you find most successful drummers now find a way to have some form of a home studio?
Well, I think it was kind of a product of COVID too, like the whole remote thing, being able to offer drum tracks like like within an hour, have them back to the artist, something like that. Like the turnaround is incredible. And also from like a fiscal way of like not spending money on a studio and an engineer and a producer and all that stuff to be able to record drums, especially in, today's tighter budgets. It's something that like really helps someone be able to offer more than the other guy. But it's a whole nother can of worms trying to record drums compared to play drums. That's a completely different set of skills. So people that can do it well, good for you. I try my best, but I'm not perfect.
So I have just a handful of deeper thought-provoking questions. Can you handle just a few more, maybe four questions?
Hit me.
All right. You've achieved so much. You're in one of the most iconic, best-selling Canadian bands of all time. Do you, and I just heard that, what is it? I think is it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? You guys were just, um,
Walk of Fame.
the Walk of Fame.
Yeah.
Man, there's so much history here with Our Lady Peace, so much success. You and your career, we've gone over all the different people you've performed with. Do you have any goals in your heart that you're still working towards that you haven't attained yet? Or are you a man fulfilled? It's all gravy after this.
Honestly, I have a hard time ever feeling like satisfied. I'm not one to really like look at my back catalog or my history to be like, I've really done something great. That's not how I think. I'm always just like, what is next? Where am I going? Um, it's that kind of like that whole connect the dots thing of seeing like, it makes sense looking back. I wish I could see where everything was connecting coming up. For me as a musician, I want to be able to create something that is touching people and means something to people, and that is an ongoing thing. To be able to like still be able to like tap in on that magic is something that I really strive for. And I've like from a performance perspective, I'd like to be playing bigger shows. Like there's something so special about that. Like um there's a different anxiety and a different like level of intimacy when you're playing a smaller show like a club or something like that. But like I was brought up on like big stadium rock and stuff like that, so that's something always want to achieve. I would love to be in the position where like GNR is, where they're playing 40, 50,000 people a night. That would be amazing.
And when you look back on your life and career, what are you most proud of and what are you most grateful for?
Grateful that I am 40 years old and I'm over 20 years into my career and I'm still able to put food on the table for my family and a roof over our head, especially with how the music industry is now. And I'm super grateful to be doing it with people that I admire, love, and respect, because I don't phone it in. I don't, I'm not just doing this for a paycheck or something like that. I'm doing this because I actually want to be here and I actually care. So to have that kind of fulfillment in my life, I feel like that means like more than anything.
And if you could sit down next to your 10-year-old self, so you could whisper words of advice, taking the last 30 years worth of uh experience and lessons and mentorships and ups and downs, if you could whisper words of advice into cute little Jason's ear at 10 years old to help guide him through this human experience, what do you share with him?
Just have faith in the process. Like, know that things are going to work out, because I remember being like even like 17 years old and having like anxieties about being like, is this ever going to hit? Am I ever going to be able to do this? Like, how am I going to get from like playing in my parents' basement to like the big stage, And like the path is not clear. Nothing makes sense of how anything's actually going to happen. But I wish I could tell myself that things were going to work out so that I didn't have to worry so much about that.
And is there anything you'd like to say to the fans that have supported you all the way back in the weekend days, all the way up to now with Our Lady Peace?
Thank you. Like from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Because I wouldn't be able to do this without the fans. I wouldn't be able to do any of this if no one cared. So like it means the world to me that I get to do this and that I get to share what I love and my passion with the rest of you.
As we wrap up, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a drummer. I want to acknowledge your courage for dreaming big, to live a life as a professional musician, to have that dream, to have that vision, and to actually pursue it, and to show other musicians what's possible if you have that clear vision and you commit to that for life. I want to thank you for putting out such great music over the last 20 years. It's been the soundtrack to my life. It's the soundtrack to millions of people around the world. I want to thank you for allowing my OLP super fan friend Megan to meet some of the different members of the band for the Ottawa show. I know that meant a lot to her. And, it was nice for me to finally meet you in person and to connect there with you as well as Rain and Duncan. And last but not least, I want to thank you for this interview, for sitting down with me for the last 2+ hours, allowing me to ask all my ridiculous questions as an OLP fan. So, Jason, thank you so much for your time.
Dude, it's been my pleasure. Seriously. And I'm sorry that it didn't connect earlier. There was a lot of logistical stuff.
That is all good. You're very welcome. So to the Jason fans, to the Weekend fans, to the Our Lady Peace fans, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, y'all.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Who would you like me to feature next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know in the comments. You can also send me an email at joelmartinmastery@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on all social media platforms at joelmartinmastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.